Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about how to help children become better listeners, how to get your children to listen to you. And this is huge. A lot of you write to me and you tell me all the issues that you have, that your children don't listen to you, that you have to tell your children 10 times to do something and they still don't do it. You have to bribe them, you have to yell at them, and that is the only way to get them to do something. And that is something that is a habit already in the child. So today we're going to talk about how to break those habits of bad listening skills. And listening skills are crucial, not only in your home, but as the child becomes a teenager and an adult. They're going to have to use listening skills, following directions from societal rules, like following traffic rules and society laws, and getting commands and requests from their bosses at work, or following a certain procedure for a project in college. So listening skills, following directions, is something that is going to follow them for the rest of their lives. So it's very important that you set that foundation early on so that you may help your children be successful in all areas in life, because this is a crucial skill. And so let's talk about how to get children to listen, some tips. So I'm just going to give you some really simple tips that I have found along the way that have worked with my children, and I have worked with other children that I have worked with as well. And they're just really simple tips, but sometimes people really miss these things. So when you are asking, let's start with number one. You want to make clear requests. This is huge because this is going to help children become better listeners. You have to be a good communicator, and you have to tell children in a clear way what is it that you are expecting from them. So the first thing is you want to get the child's attention when you're going to make that request. So you don't want to be barking orders across the room while they're playing with their blocks or they're running, playing hide and seek with their friends. You want to go up to the child, get onto their level. If you have to sit down or if you have to get on your knees so you can get to their level, get eye contact from them, maybe lightly touch them, and and ask them by their name. Susan. Okay? And then get their attention so that you know that they're listening. And then you're going to make the request. So when people make requests, it's really important that you realize whether you're asking a question or you are giving an instruction. And you want to steer away from asking questions. So let's give you an example. So let's say you require your children to put their dishes away when they're done eating. And you notice that there's a dish on the table and one of your kids didn't put it away. So a question would be, would you like to put your plate in the dishwasher? So you see how there's an open, this is a question. This is a question. Would you like to put your dish in the dishwasher? Now, an instruction would be, please put your dish in the dishwasher at this moment. It's clear. It's telling the child what you're expecting and when do you expect the action. At this moment. Before you do anything else. Right now. And it's really important that you state that you are wanting cooperation at this moment. Another one could be the question about when kids are going to go out with their coats. Are you ready to put your coat on? Again, you are asking the child a question that's going to, they could not want to put their coat on at that moment. They may want to keep playing. Now, an instruction would be, please put your coat on when you get downstairs. I say that when I get downstairs because my mudroom is downstairs. Please put on your coat right now. We are leaving. See, it's clear, it's direct, it's polite. You're saying please. Let's say that a child is jumping on the sofa. Now, a lot of parents get into this thing where they think they're asking their child to stop doing something and they're really not. So they could say something like, you should not be jumping on the sofa. You can get hurt. Would you please get down? So you're not being direct. You're over here telling them why they shouldn't be jumping on the sofa. When kids are small, they need direct instruction, and it needs to be clear and few words and direct. Please stop jumping on the sofa. Get down. Right now. Simple, direct. You're telling them when you want the action done. At this moment. At this moment, stop jumping on the sofa. If they're small, if they're like 1 or 2, stop jumping on the sofa. You're telling the child exactly what you want. Let's say a child is throwing blocks. You could start telling your child, you can hurt someone with those blocks. It's not nice of you to throw blocks. Are you really telling the child to stop throwing the blocks? No. You say an instruction, stop throwing those blocks right now. And it's the same thing with like other things that you can ask your child. Like, for example, don't play like that with your sibling. You're not being direct. What is it? You have to have a direct action. What is it that you're asking them? Do not wrestle with your sister. What about do not eat like that? What does that mean to the child? Do not eat like that. They don't know what you mean. You have to be direct. You have to have a direct, clear request. Please chew with your mouth closed. Direct, to the point, simple. And so, it's really important that you ask for direct requests, because a lot of times children, your request can get lost in all your rationale of you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. You start asking questions, you start giving kids choices. And I really think it's important that parents realize that. When you start giving kids a choice, they could say no to you, or they could not want to do that at that moment. So, for example, you could say, Johnny, it's time for bed, okay? Or it's time to leave the park, okay? What about if they're not okay? That's going to arise a battle between you and your child. So, these are the things you want to give direct request to children. So if you're leaving the park, I usually give my children a 10 minutes heads up. We're leaving the park in 10 minutes, you guys. And then I just say, we're leaving the park now. Let's go put our shoes on. And that's it. And I start walking away, and they see me walking away. So it's that simple. I like giving kids a heads up because you don't want to just pull abruptly. You want to have easy transitions. So you want to give them, 10 minutes. We're leaving in 10 minutes. We're leaving in 5 minutes. And then we're saying, okay, we are leaving the park right now. You need to go put your shoes on and let's go. It's that simple. You don't give them a choice when you need to go, because then you're running things on your child's clock, on your child's time. And you are the leader of your home. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because there's a trend right now. There's a pattern, a parental trend right now where parents are giving children so many choices that is overwhelming to them, and it's also giving them too much power. This type of power you don't want to give to a child that's under 11 years old. Why? Because they're not mature enough to make decisions yet. And you want to give that type of power of more choices when they're preteens, when they're teenagers, not when they are young children. Young children need to be led. They need to learn how to follow the instructions. They need to have a foundational, a firm foundation on what it means to follow instructions, to be led. It's really important for children to learn how to be led, because when they're in school with another teacher, when they're learning from another teacher, when they're in college, when they're in work, they're gonna have to learn how to be led. This is something that has to be learned. And so when you start giving children so many choices at young ages, at a 2 or 3-year-old, giving them so many choices, you are basically giving them too much power. and they don't know what to do with that power, and they get out of control. And so that's why you see some homes that their children run their homes. Their children dictate where they go, what they eat, their menu, all their activities throughout the day. Their children run things. The children are the leaders. They're child-led homes. And these are the homes that get in so much trouble when it comes to discipline later on, behavioral problems, all types of things. You have to remember that you are the leader of your home. Your children are not mature enough to be able to make sound choices at those ages. So, for example, your child is not going to understand at 3 years old that going outside without a jacket can get them sick. So you don't want to give them the choice about whether they want to wear a jacket or not. You don't want to give a child a choice whether they're going to hold your hand when you cross the street, because they don't understand the dangers of the street. They don't understand the dangers of evil and strangers out there and things that can happen. They don't understand. They don't have the maturity level to understand schedules, routines. So children need to be led at these ages. And that is why you don't want to introduce so much choice at these ages. You want to give direct, concise requests to children. And I'm not saying you're never going to give them any choice ever and you're going to be this authoritarian, this like alpha dog. No. Because you can ask your child, would you like more apple juice? There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you start asking your child, you're in the supermarket, what kind of juice would you like? Would you like strawberry juice, apple juice, cranberry juice, lemonade? You're giving them all these options. You as a parent need to decide, okay, what is the healthiest juice that I'm going to get for my family this week? I'm going to get apple juice for whatever reason. You don't want to give you don't want to give children all those choices. You know, this type of thing leads children to think that they are the center of the world. And they need to understand that they are part of a family. They're not the center of their family. Things don't run on their clock, on their schedule, on their interests, on their likes. That's not how things work. It's a family. So now let's talk about, what if you've asked your child in a direct, concise way, and you've given them an instruction, and you've been clear, but the child just simply doesn't want to listen to you. Now, you have to remember, if the child is used to being bribed, being asked for things 20 times, being hit, being spanked before they listen, then that is what they are going to wait for. Your words don't mean anything to them because you have trained them that way. So let's take a step back first, because I talked about bribing, I talked about spanking and all this stuff. You don't want to do that with your children. Okay, so at this point, if your child is not listening to you, you want to apply a consequence that is not bribing, hitting, threatening, or yelling. You don't want to spank your children, because spanking is teaching children how to resolve conflict with violence. And sooner or later, that child is going to become violent, and they're going to use violence against you or against someone else. It is very demeaning to use your force to intimidate your child to do what you want. It's a horrible thing, and you're teaching them the wrong lesson. Never spank or hit your children. And you can look up research about this, how horrible this is. Don't yell at your children. And I know that's easier said than done, because we all fall into those things, right? In terms of yelling, it's almost like spanking. It's like a spanking of the soul. You don't need to yell. You don't need to yell to get your point across. You don't need to get to that point. You don't need to bribe. You don't need to give kids good things so that they can give you something back. I'll take you to the park if you put your coat on. I'll do this. Don't negotiate with your children, because that is, you're teaching them not to listen to you unless you give them something. And that is the wrong message. So what do? Your child is not listening to you. You want to apply a consequence directly related to the action if possible. So what do I mean by that? Let's give you some examples. If the child is throwing blocks, the blocks go away. Simple as that. You've asked the child not to throw the blocks. They continue, the blocks go away. Now they're understanding, wow, mom, dad means business. It might take a few months of you doing this constantly, consistently, with effort, with never failing, always following through. You have to follow through. If the child is playing inappropriately at the park and you've already told the child to stop, you told the child, we're going to be going home, then you want to follow through. Go home. Take the child home. It might be an inconvenience to you. It might be an inconvenience to your play date. But you're doing the child a disservice by threatening them, telling them that you're going to go home and then you never go home. That's training them to see and to know, oh, you know what? My mom doesn't really mean what she says. I could keep doing what I want and she's never going to follow through. That's the message you're sending the child. If you told the child that you're going to go home if they continue an action and they continue it, you need to get up and go home. And it's going to take a few times to do that so that they understand how to respect and how to follow instruction. If a child is misusing an electronic, the electronic goes away. Do you see how the consequence is directly related to the action? Another one is you tell your child, only ride your bike in the backyard. And they go ahead and they get out and they go around the block and they go on the street. So what happens? The bike goes away for a few days. So as you can see, the consequence is related to the action. There's going to be times where you're not going to be able to have a consequence that's directly related to the action, because the action could be that they pushed, they shoved their brother or sister, they hit, they're doing something that you can't really find a consequence that related to the action. So what I do is I basically just have the child sit next to me on a timeout. And I usually don't send them to their rooms, because their room sometimes to them is like a little vacation. They start playing around, they zone out, they're not really thinking about what they really did wrong. And this is a time of reflection. This is a time of pause. You did something wrong. You need to pause, reflect, and realize you did something wrong. Also, you can have like a timeout chair, a reflection chair, a little corner of your home where you have a particular spot where they're going to be going there to reflect, to have a timeout. And a common guideline for timeout is if the child is 3 years old, is 3 minutes. If the child is 4 years old, is 4 minutes. If the child is 5 years old, is 5 minutes. Now you can only use this for a certain time, because after children get older, timeouts really don't work. So you could start implementing other things. Now I'm talking about from my experience. This is for my children that are 8 and below. This is what I do. So you want to be consistent with your consequences. You don't want to get into the, having to repeat things over and over and over again. Because what does that do? That's training the child to not listen, to understand that you don't mean business, that your words don't have power. You have to apply consequences, and you have to do it consistently every single time. In the beginning, it's going to be the hardest, because your child is already used to knowing that they can get away with things. But once your child knows and understands and has experienced your consequences, they're going to do things right away, because they know what's going to happen. And so let the consequence do the yelling. A book that I highly recommend for applying boundaries and limits for your children is called Setting Limits with Your Strong-Willed Child. And I'm going to link that book below, because that book goes into detail on how to apply consequences, how to apply boundaries and limits with children. And it's going to give you examples, and it's going to give you a lot more help in that area. And I think it's crucial for our parents to know how to apply boundaries and limits in their homes, because children without limits are ruthless, they're going to have so many behavior problems. It's really important that your home has limits and boundaries. So now the last part that I want to talk about is connection. So you don't want to just be this authoritarian parent, this alpha dog who just barks orders and, You have to listen to me because I said so type of thing. You want to have a connection with your child, a relationship. Because when you do, your child is going to cooperate and it's going to want to listen to you and cooperate. I really believe in connection and in bonding. And, you do this by spending time with your child, by talking to your child. And I know it sounds like, oh yeah, I already do that. But, research states that most parents only talk to their children like 2 to 3 minutes a day. It's horrible. Most parents are on their phones. They're just doing things around the home. They don't really sit down and talk to their children. And more importantly, they don't sit down and listen to their children. It's really important to get on the floor, play Legos with them, Play-Doh, hide and seek, whatever it is that they're into. Maybe play catch outside, play soccer. You might want to watch a movie with them or their favorite cartoon. Find activities that will help you bond with your children. That goes for mom and dad alike. It's very important for dad also to be involved in this way, creating this bond and this relationship with the child. It's going to improve behavior. It's going to increase cooperation, increase listening skills, because the child has a bond, a connection with you, and they're not going to want to break that. And that is what I talked about before, that you don't want to spank, you don't want to yell, you don't want to threaten, you don't want to be this villain, because when you do that, you break relationship, you break bonds. And that is the worst thing that you can do for you and your children. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. I just wanted to go ahead and just give you some tips on how you can get children to listen. It's very simple. You have clear requests, you have consequences, and you work on that bonding and connection with children. And if you do these things, you're going to see results. You're going to see results. Don't be saddened if at first you have to ask them so many times and it feels exhausting to have to apply all these consequences, because in the beginning it's going to be hard to break those old habits. You're going to be applying a lot of consequences at the beginning because they need to understand that your words mean business. And once they understand that, they're going to be doing things right away. And no family is perfect. No child is perfect. They may not listen to you one day. Don't get disheartened. There is no such thing as perfection in this world. I hope that you have gotten some good tips here. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do, and click on the notification bell. Also subscribe to my email list. I go ahead and I email you the videos when I put them out, so that you don't miss a video. Until the next time. Bye.